Welcome back to That's So Nourishing. I am so excited for today's episode because I'm going to be sharing with you something that I am so passionate about and that I absolutely love and has really shaped who I am today. This episode is going to air while I'm traveling, while we're going to be in Spain, traveling all around. And if you know anything about me, you know that I'm obsessed with travel. I designed my entire life around it. And I've been to over 70 countries. I've traveled solo for a year. Me and my husband traveled together as digital nomads for 7 years all around the world. So travel is such a huge part of who I am. What I really want to share with you in today's episode is the main takeaways and the main things that travel has really given me. There's so many, but I distilled it into a handful so that I could share it in this episode. And it's been such a powerful shaper in who I am today and in my life. Travel has really made me, shown me who I am in different environments. It's shown me the world and allowed me to see it for myself, not just what the news or what other people were saying or what I saw online. And it's really expanded my perspectives of ways to live instead of maybe the rigid way that I thought that everyone lived based on how I grew up. And it's really just opened my heart to how beautiful this world is and how the people in this world, all of us, when it really boils down to it, we really want the same things. It shaped my life in so many ways. So I'm excited to share it with you in this episode. Whether you travel a lot or you don't travel at all, this episode is going to be really powerful for you because it's about so much more than travel. For me, travel has been so much about discovering who I actually am, who I am when no one's around, when the confines of our day-to-day lives or the routines that we're in and those constructs that our cultures hold us in or the expectations and roles people place on us don't apply, where we get to show up just as ourselves and discover, who am I outside of all of that? So we're going to go into a lot of that in this episode. And don't worry, we'll be sharing a lot of travel stories too. Keep your ears peeled and your hearts open to really see which pieces land with you and maybe where in your own life you want to stretch a bit more to see how you can discover more of who you are through what I share. I also want to highlight that when a lot of people talk about travel, they talk about it as an escape from their day-to-day life. Whether they say that they need to get out and go on vacation and they need to just be able to relax and let go of those everyday stressors and the expectations that they have and the work pressure that they carry to just be more of themselves and to be more present. Or people who have traveled a lot and lived on the road, often they look back and they will say, not everyone, but a handful will look back and say, oh, I didn't realize, but I was actually using travel to run away from really going deep, to really looking in at myself and dealing with certain issues and situations. For me, travel has been so much more than that. Travel really has been a way that I have come home to myself, that I have discovered who I actually am and found a deeper love for myself and how I show up in situations. And it's been such a mirror and such a magnifier for me. So I'm just so grateful when I think about, currently we've been a bit more stable since we now have a son, and I think about traveling and my whole heart lights up. I feel so alive. It feels like that's really where I get to be fully me and like my most core self comes online. So when people talk about home is where the heart is, I fully resonate with that expression because for me, my home is the world. It has given me so much. And it has, like I said, really made me who I am and really support me in actually discovering my core self. So I'm so excited to dive into this episode and to really share that with you today. There is nothing like it to me than when I first step into a new place, a new city, a new environment for that first time, and my whole senses get activated. I'm fully present there, taking it all in. I can feel the different energies that arise within myself and who I become in each place and how I shift. And it is so, so special. There is truly no feeling like it. I'm going to highlight that in a little bit, but I want to first start off with really a big piece that I noticed right away in my travels is that the world is not as it seems. I think a lot of us growing up and just throughout our lives, we develop these certain stereotypes of how we think the world is, whether we think certain places are safe or dangerous, or how we think certain cultures are, or how they behave, or ways that they should be or shouldn't be, or what's okay and what's not okay. Just all these different layers that we pile on that we grow up with. I know for myself, even in my early travel days in high school, when I went to Europe, I went first with my AP Spanish class and my AP history class. It was very different than what I had imagined and what I had been conditioned to believe that it would be like. And it made this lasting impression on me. I still remember where I was and how I felt when I realized that. And I'll never forget when I went to Colombia for the first time. Back in 2015, I traveled solo for a year. And my first stop was Colombia. I was going to South America for 7 months. So while I was planning this trip, I was so excited. I was doing all this research, planning everything. I just love looking into everything, figuring it all out, seeing what I would do, learning so much because I didn't really know much about South America. And at the same time, I would hear the news and I would hear the media share all these terrifying stories about things that happened there and how dangerous it was. And just these stories that made me have a certain view around Colombia and South America. And then my mom was in my ear just telling me how dangerous it was. What if something happened to me? How scary it could be. And just all these things building fear in me. So by the time I got to Colombia, I was so excited because I wasn't going to let that stop me, but I still had a certain amount of fear in me. And I'll never forget how grateful I was when I landed in Colombia, got into a taxi, and made it to my hostel. Because I realized, oh, wow, okay, I actually did it. I'm traveling solo now. I made it. And I saw that Colombia was nothing like all of those news articles that I had seen or what my mom was saying, that it was actually so much better and so much more alive and so much more developed and just such an amazing, amazing special place. I have been back to Colombia multiple times. It is one of my favorite countries. So highly suggest checking it out if you haven't for whatever reason. Another time that this happened was in 2021 in the middle of COVID. It was November of 2021, and towards the end of that month, Omicron struck, and it was supposedly really bad in Africa. I was in Africa. I spent a month in Namibia with my friend. We were doing a co-living where you go and work with a group of people. And at the end of the month, my husband was supposed to come out and we were going to travel around Africa. The last week or so of my experience, Omicron struck, and all over the news was saying how bad it was in Africa, how dangerous it was, and how nobody should come there. But I was there and I wasn't experiencing any of that. I was just living a normal life and it all felt fine. And not saying things weren't happening, but the day to day for me didn't change. So I ended up traveling at the end of my month in Namibia to Zimbabwe. And that is the whole story for another time. If you haven't heard it yet, it is a pretty wild story how I got to Zimbabwe. And my husband was supposed to meet me the next day. However, his flight got canceled and he had to reroute. And then he had a lot of people, his parents, the news, a lot of people telling him that he shouldn't come, that it was so dangerous. And I was like, no, just come. It'll be worth it. I promise. He ends up coming and it's totally fine. We end up traveling through Botswana, Zimbabwe, Zambia, and having the best time. And nobody was there because everyone canceled their flights. So we got these amazing deals at all these places. We stayed at this one epic lodge. We were the only customers there, so we got VIP treatment. It was so sick, and we hung out with the owners every night, and we ended up getting a huge discount there. It was awesome. And it was also really sad because all of these businesses lost so much money from all of the customers that were supposed to come for the holidays. I mean, that was so much that was lost there. And it was fine. We didn't deal with any issues when it came to the virus or what was really being shared on the news. And so these are a few instances for me where I really realized, and so many, and going to 70 countries, so many where I realized that the world is just not as it seems. We take on a lot of these stereotypes, or we're told a lot of things about how people are in certain environments or what it's going to be like. And for me, that's never been the case. I've actually discovered no matter what's going on with the governments or the rulers of countries, when you actually go and you talk to the people directly, that they're typically so beautiful that we all really want the same things, that we want that connection, love, basic human needs. We want to get along. And when we can get past all of that, all of the dogma that's in society, we're able to really meet each other heart to heart. And it's been such a beautiful experience for me to just really open my heart and open my mind and see that and see the power of, even if countries do things differently and they live, which we'll talk about in a bit, so differently from us, that there's so much that we can learn from that. And that through opening our perspectives to that, it can really show us different ways that we can experience life and show us that it doesn't always have to be one way or the way that we're used to. And the world is such a beautiful place. The amount of places that I've gone that operate so differently from us, but that are so beautiful, and that I've seen just epic sights all over the world. Oh my gosh, I would have hated to miss that. I think we get ideas about what places look like or what they'll be like. And there's so much that comes out in the media, whether in the news or articles or just different things, but go ask someone's experience who's actually been there. Go ask them how it's been and see if it matches or if it's different than what you heard. And notice maybe where you're holding yourself back from different things you've heard to going to places that you actually want to go. Not saying that stuff doesn't happen in places. Of course it does. And stuff happens in the US too. It happens everywhere. Just saying that what I believed the world to be through the conditioning that I grew up with and just the news and other places, when I've actually gone out and explored it, it has shattered all of that. And it's been so much better than I could have imagined. And who I've gotten to become through experiencing all of that and the places that I've gotten to see and experience. Wow, it has made such a huge impact on my life. It has really just opened my mind up and really expanded the capacity and the tolerance that I have for the world and the people in this world, and has made me really question things that I hear too, and it made me get more curious about what the place is actually like. Where are the people actually there, and find things out for myself. One other story that I love that I'll share is we went in 2020 to Turkey. We went there in April. The day after we got there, it went into lockdown. So we were like, oh, shit. We ended up staying in Istanbul for 2 weeks because we loved it so much. But it was in lockdown, so only tourists could go out. It was very different than what it would typically be like. And so in order to eat dinner, there were certain restaurants you could go to, but some other restaurant owners would stand outside and they would try to recruit you in to go have dinner. We met this one guy and he was like, come later and I'll cook for you. So an hour later, we show up at the restaurant. It's just us. We have this private dinner. He cooks this amazing meal of all this Turkish food. He has us helping him. It was one of my favorite travel experiences ever. He didn't speak a lick of English and we didn't speak any Turkish. So through Google Translate for 3 hours, we are communicating with each other, having the best time. And that's what travel gives you. It gives you these experiences to just formulate it for yourself and just see what it's like versus maybe how we think people are in the world or the ideas that we get. We just really get to experience that. And it's so, so special. And so for me, like I said, I realized the world really wasn't how it seems. And it's so much richer than that and such an amazing place. Which segues me into my next takeaway, which is really that there's so many different ways to live life. So many of the constructs, the rules, the day to day, the way that we believe we have to act in the US or wherever we live is 1000% like sometimes even the very opposite than what we know to be true in a different part of the world. Traveling to over 70 countries, I have seen so many different ways of living life, and it has expanded my mind so much and really supported me in seeing, oh, maybe things don't have to be this way. Maybe there is no one right way. I can break the rules here. I can see actually, well, how does this work for me? I could take on this piece that I like or try that one. And this has supported me not just in travel, but in so many areas of my life. I think we can get really conditioned to feel that things have to be a certain way, or that we are supposed to act a certain way or show up in a certain way, or that life is a certain way. And that is just not true. Through traveling, I have seen so many cultures that live completely different from us and have really successful, really thriving lives. Take Europe, for example. Since I'll be in Spain when this episode comes out, let's go to Spain. Spain is such an amazing country. It's one of our favorite countries. And in Spain, they have such a different way of life. In a lot of Europe, they wake up later, their day starts later, they go to bed later, they eat dinner later, and in the middle of the day, they have a big siesta. So if I'm lucky, while my baby naps, maybe I'll be getting some siestas in while we're in Spain. And they're a perfectly successful society. And again, the way we decide about success might be different for each person, but people there love the way that they're living, right? Their lives are full. Spain is thriving. And then look at the US and how it operates very differently. Most people with jobs are not taking siestas in the middle of the day. We wake up early, we go to work, spend most of your day at work, come back to eat dinner, spend some time with your family, decompress, and then do it again. Yet somehow both societies are existing in parallel. So for me, whenever I've gone to Europe and I even see how much time Europeans get off, I'm like, wow, okay, so there's something here and we don't need to operate the same way as the US does, or we don't need to operate this way, the way that the US is operating in order to have a successful life. We could start to question things and maybe operate a little bit differently. Let's go to Southeast Asia, because this, if you've ever been here, you know that this is going to be a very different way of life than we operate in the US. There is some chaos going on in some of those places in the best way. It feels so alive. There's 5 people on a scooter. There's animals on these scooters. They're driving all over the place. The roads are so full. In some places, there's literally animals crossing the road. There's no rules in a lot of these places. I mean, they of course have laws, but when it comes to structures that you can climb or certain ways of operating on the day to day, it's just not the same as it is in the US. And the way that they value certain things is very different from how we value things in the Western world. And it just really opened my mind to see, wow, there's so much more here. There's a whole different way of living that feels so free, and that step 1, 2, 3 of how things have to go, it doesn't have to be that way. It can actually be step 3, 5, 2, however we want to do it. That there's no right way, that it's really what is going to support you in life. And this is so powerful because I think a lot of times we can feel like there's just one way to be, and there's not. And we can see that through the world and how differently so many other parts of the world live. I've seen when I've gone to Africa or South America how people live in different tribes and communities and how they're so spiritual and prioritize nature and such different things than what we do in the West, or how people heal so holistically and really prioritize that, or areas where people are so religious and the whole country is built on religion and they live differently. And so seeing all of these ways and not judging them has really taught me to just really open my mind and shift my perspective and see, wow, there is no one way that things have to be done and there's no right way. And I get to really try on and feel what's best for me and get to take on different things from different cultures and integrate them into my own life and see that it doesn't have to be so confined as I might have thought that it needed to be. And just, wow, I thought things had to be this way or this was the rule for something, but here they're doing something completely different and it seems to be working out just fine for them. And I actually want a little piece of that. This can support you in actually following, like, are these rules that have to be in place? Did I just start following these because this is how I thought it had to be and I was conditioned into them? Or do I want to change things up? Do I maybe not want to follow these rules? Is it something different here? I'm not saying to like go break all these rules here. I'm just saying to start to think about what you maybe just took on is not realizing that you actually had a choice and how you want to show up in life. Even in Bali, a lot of people from the US move to Bali and the cost of living in Bali is so much cheaper, and the way that their family system runs and their traditions and their culture, it's so different from the US. And it can be so refreshing in some ways to just really see how people live that way. And it can shift your perspective in so many other things. And I'll talk about this in a bit, but on so many of the things that you're valuing in life and that you feel are important, it can really shift your perspective to see, oh, whoa, maybe this actually wasn't so important. You can see how we maybe considered certain things to be so important and so valuable in life. A lot of that, even if you think about work, how important that can be to a lot of people in the West and how it's so different in other societies and how their society is maybe way more focused on family or connection or really tending to yourself or to really living. There's so many different ways. And so for me, that's really opened my eyes and it's really supported me in seeing different ways to live. For example, you'll probably hear me share this story in multiple episodes. I studied abroad in Australia and it opened my world because I realized, whoa, being from New York, everyone was always hustle, go, 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 on to that next thing. And I said, wait, there's a way to actually live and just be present and be in the moment and love life and that be what's most important is enjoyment. Oh my gosh, I want a piece of that. And I pretty much have seeked that throughout my life. Ended up moving to California after because it was the closest I could get to Australia. And it just opened my world to what was possible. And so it really made me start to see one, what I valued, and two, different ways that I could actually live. And so that brings me to my next piece of different values. We get to see what values are really important to us. If it's been work, because that's just how our society is, and we actually learn, well, that's not what's really important to me. I want to take on other values. And we get to see how different societies operate and different cultures through different values and what that produces. One of the biggest things when it comes to values that I learned through traveling is we really don't need as much as we think that we do. A lot of times in the US, we think that in order to be happy, we need all of these things. We need all these external things to make us happy, whether that's having success, a lot of money. Some people might think it's the house. We need to look a certain way, the family. We need all these massive experiences. We need all these material things. And sure, that could be one way to get happy. I know for me personally, when I had everything I ever wanted, it was probably the least happy I was in my life. And I had to do a lot of deep inner work. And what I've seen traveling is that that actually has nothing to do with happiness. I have seen people who have nothing, literally living in huts and giving away their food to support people, being the happiest, the most cheerful people, and some of the wisest people that I've ever met. It's really shown me that we don't need as much as we think to be happy. And it's shifted my values and different external things that I thought I needed to really realize that it starts within. And it's so much about what are we prioritizing? Like we can really look at what are we prioritizing, what's important. When I was in Namibia, there were areas where people had nothing, but they were so happy because they were in these big communities in so many of these countries. People might look at them in first glance and think that they're less well off than us, but are they? If their hearts are really full and they're loving their lives and they have so much connection and love and community, a lot of these cultures value community and they're there for each other and they respect their elders and they treat the land so well and they're so intentional with their time and how they spend it and move slower and thoughtful. Just being in life in each moment. There's so much that we can take from that. I met some of the happiest people, like I said, in these places. It's just been a really big eye opener for me to see, like, wow, all those things that we've been conditioned to believe that we think make us happy, that's not it. And that with so much less, we can live really fulfilling, happy lives. If we can start to shift our values and if we can really decide what really matters to us and foster that connection. We're taught that happiness is in that next thing or chasing or we'll be happy when. But I've seen in all of these places that I've gone that happiness is a decision. You choose to be happy now, and that really happiness comes from within themselves, within their community, within their values, within what they've decided to make them happy, without all of those external things. And that's been so powerful for me to see and really shifted the way that I live my life and how I operate. In this same vein, another big piece that I've gotten from travel is what I mentioned a bit earlier in this episode is that for me, travel has really supported me in figuring out who I actually am. When we're in our day to day environments and we're in the confines of what's expected of us, of our roles that we play, of just our autopilot, of how we show up in every single day life, in our comfort zones, our baseline, we act one way. And a lot of times people project and have these expectations of us. And without even realizing, we just show up in that way and in the roles that we've chosen for ourselves, whether consciously or unconsciously. However, when we travel, we get out of those confines and instantly get access to so much more of ourselves, to who are we without all those labels, without all those roles that hold us down. And who do we get to be? Traveling solo, I got to see so much of myself when I was meeting new people, when I was moving to different places, when things would happen and things would go wrong. I got to learn so much about who I was and parts of myself that I loved and parts that I maybe didn't so much. And I got to explore so much range of who I am. When we're around the same people, we maybe feel like we typically have to act the same way. For me, when I would go and meet all these different people all the time, and I would get to try on different facets of my personality and see, ooh, how do I show up here? And how do I show up here? Or see, oh, wow, I'm constantly showing up this way. So this must be who I am in all these different situations. For me, I've also gotten to see how adventurous I am when I've gotten in some insane, like wild situations, had to take an 18-wheeler across the border. I got to see how I dove into that, how I will try any food in all these different countries and just taste pretty much everything to see what it's like, how I'll spontaneously decide to book a flight one day and go somewhere the next. I've gotten to push these edges of my personality and how I mentioned this in the beginning, but I'll see how when I go into a city, one part of my personality lights up and I get so invigorated and energized to explore everything and want to see it all. And then when I'm in nature and or When I'm in more rural areas and I'm going into these beautiful mountainous areas, I can see how my whole personality can shift there and how I can really ground and be more intentional and slow down and become more of that side of me. And how I'm at the beach or when people are partying, I can see that side of me and how that comes out. Or how when I'm in some of those chaotic environments, I can see what comes out and I can start to really discover who I am. When I was in Argentina, I wanted to go skiing. I was in Bariloche and the power went out in the city. So, in order to get from my hostel to the ski lodge or to the mountain, all the public transport was down. So, I actually had to hitchhike to get myself there. And I had to see how resourceful I was and how bold I was to make that happen. I've learned countless times how resourceful I am in different situations when I don't have directions and I start talking to people who don't even speak English, trying to figure out where to go. I've seen it when I've been on a bus in the middle of different countries and they break down and then I miss my next connection, how I handle that and how I'm so adaptable and flexible. And maybe I see some parts that I didn't love as much too to learn who I am and love those parts. So I've gotten to learn so much about myself and who I actually am through these experiences when things aren't just structured and going in that day to day, or when I'm not around people who expect me to show up a certain way. I can be more free to experience the range of myself and learn more about how different environments, our environment can impact us a lot in how we show up. And just subconsciously, we start to act the same way if we've been in an environment for a while. So through taking myself into different environments, I've really gotten to see who I am in all of those environments and learn so much more about myself and, again, who I actually am. One of the areas of my work is really supporting women in becoming the version of themselves that they typically only meet on vacation, but becoming that in their everyday lives. Because when we are on vacation, when we are traveling, when we don't have those confines of our day to day environment, of our day to day expectations, we allow ourselves to experience the truth of who we are and really who we are at our core. And so I love supporting people because it's been such a big piece of my life in discovering that and really doing the work to become that in their everyday lives, because we don't just have to go somewhere to become that person. We get to claim it in ourselves. Travel, though, is a great way to start to figure out who that version is. Also, travel can really support us with uncertainty. It takes us outside of our comfort zone and the way we're comfortable with comforts of our home, of our day-to-day life, of our job, of the way that we act. It really throws us out of that. And when we're going into different environments that we know nothing about or we don't have as much control over, we don't know how to get from point A to point B or what's going to happen there. That uncertainty can really stretch us in ways and it can really build our capacity to handle a lot of other things in life. I built so much of my capacity to handle different things in life through travel. It's built my capacity to be a parent. It's built my capacity to build a business as successful as I did. It was such a huge piece in that because I was able to move through so many different situations and move through the unknown that I was able to take different risks in my life and to feel comfortable handling certain things that were outside of the norm. And my mind was able to adjust to them. So it can really support us as we move through the uncertainty of travel to not only support us in travel, it supports us in who we become and in our day to day lives, because then once we go back to our day to day lives, we can handle more of that uncertainty as well. As we get to figure out more of who we are, we get to figure out, as I shared, a lot of the amazing things about ourselves. And we get to play with different versions of ourselves and see what comes out in different environments and with different people and in different situations. We also get to see our patterns and the areas of growth that we have. As I've talked about previously in a different podcast episode, when we go to a new place, we're still bringing ourselves. Our nervous system is still coming in our carry-on. We can try to outrun it. We could try to maybe move across the country. I used to try to move different places thinking maybe it'll be different here. Maybe it'll be different here. But no, it's still us. And travel is such a way to really get mirrored back our patterns and who we actually are in that way. A lot of times when we're in the same environment, it could be easy to blame our boss or blame some other person, blame our partner, or think it's the environment or it's our job or whatever it might be, and not actually take that responsibility to really look in the mirror and see, wait, no, it's me. And for me, when I started to travel and I started to see myself interact in different situations and I started to see myself in new friendships and I started to see how certain patterns developed and certain thoughts that I'd have or certain ways I'd hold myself back. And I noticed, oh, wow, okay, this is me. Or how certain times back in 2015 before I started all this nervous system work when I'd be in some situations, how I'd maybe freak out. Maybe I wouldn't have handled something the best and maybe had some regrets or shame around it, or how I'd show up in certain situations. And those patterns got revealed to me. So I really had to start looking in the mirror at myself in a lot of ways to see, oh, wow, okay, this is the baggage that I'm carrying. These are the patterns that I have. Or when I'd start to get stressed or anxious in situations where if I thought we were going to be late to something or we might miss a bus, or just noticing, okay, where am I not really opening up to the moment? Where am I not flexible? And where am I not regulated, and really getting that revealed to me, and then knowing, okay, from there I get to look at that. And that's really supported me on a lot of my growth journey to really show me what's in front of me, because again, we're not in those same environments, so we're going to a new environment, and when things are still coming up, we realize, oh wait, this is me. Even when we go to a beach and when we go on vacation and we think, oh, we're going to be able to relax, we're going to be able to chill, but we're not able to do that, even though everything in the environment says you should be able to relax, then we get to learn that about ourselves, that, oh, this is where my baseline is. Again, tune into episode 3 for more info on the baseline. But this is where my baseline is. So it's currently not being relaxed. That feels more scary to me, or that feels inaccessible. That's something I want to work on. So noticing the patterns, right? No judgment, just noticing, okay, so this is my current pattern. This is my current comfort zone. Is it something I want to shift? And so things can really be revealed to us as we travel and as we go to new places. For me, this was a big one as I was living my dream. When I started to be able to travel the world and work from anywhere, I noticed as I went to all these beautiful places and I was taking them in, I would still get super anxious, super stressed, feel all this pressure. And so I realized, whoa, like, okay, I'm going to all these new environments, all these amazing places where I shouldn't be feeling this way, and I am. So that really showed me my patterns and how my nervous system was running. I really started to notice where I was at, where my mind was, where I was operating from, and just really got to look at that from a really clear lens. In these last 2 that I shared, where we really get to see what patterns come up and we get to discover who we truly are, we get to see as we leave the environment that we're used to, really what surfaces, really how we express ourselves, really what comes through, what is the same as when we're typically in that environment, and what is different. And we get to learn so much about ourselves through that. Again, no judgment of ourselves, but we really get to see who we are, which is so powerful. And then when we get home, we get to notice, do I fall back into those patterns? Do I start becoming that old version of me, or can I bring in this new version of me from travel? And that was expanded when I traveled. I know for me, sometimes I would discover all these things about myself traveling. I'd feel so free. And then I'd go back and be with my friends or people that knew me a certain way. And I'd kind of start to shrink again. I really had to start to expand that capacity to be who I was. And I was out in the world with the people who had certain expectations of me behaving in a certain way. And that can happen to a lot of us, where we come back from vacation, from the travel, and then we end up showing up in the way that's expected of us. And that could be something to break through as well. Travel has such a special place in my heart. I absolutely love travel. It really is a coming home for me. It is where I feel most alive, most me, most expansive. Oh my gosh, it is so rich and it has given me so much. I hope that through this episode, you were able to see some of the ways that travel has impacted me, and that my takeaways were able to be supportive for you. And maybe you were able to see new ways of how travel has impacted you in your own life, or see how you can go into a new environment, even if you don't travel, and see how that can really shift how you learn about yourself and deepen your experience of who you are. As I've said countless times in the episode, not only has travel shown me the world, it has also really shown me myself. And I am forever grateful for that and will never stop traveling because of it. It is one of the most amazing things that I believe that we can do to fully expand our capacity to fully seize this life and just take advantage of all the world has to offer and experience all sorts of things that are not only going to just fulfill us so much in the moment, will really just expand our mind outside of our comfort zone, outside of the way that we think we are, or outside of the way that we think things have to be. For me, it's never been really about spending money on things. It's always been about being in the experience and spending money on experiences. Because for me, it's so important to just fully live and fully take in all the experiences that life has to offer, and really see who I get to become on the other side because of them, and discover more of my core self and who I truly am. So, like I said, this episode wasn't fully about travel, was it? Because travel has given me so much more than just the travel itself. So, I hope that you got a lot out of this episode, that you were able to really see yourself in it as well. And this episode has supported you in discovering more of yourself, unraveling those conditionings, the ways of being that we think that we have to be, or the confines that we put ourselves in, and that you were able to really open your heart, open your mind, and ground into more of who you truly are at your core. With that, I'm probably enjoying tapas and walking around Spain right now. So I'm going to continue doing that. When I come back from this trip, maybe I'll do a little podcast sharing more about travel and about my travels and what they were like. Traveling with a baby will be a whole new thing internationally as we travel all around. So I'll maybe keep you guys posted on that. And in the meantime, let's get nourished. If this episode resonated with you, I would absolutely love if you could like, share, and subscribe to this podcast and leave a 5-star review as well. It is my mission to support as many women as possible in truly coming back to themselves, rooting into who they truly are, and ultimately become nourished in all areas of their lives. I would absolutely love for you to join me on that mission and help spread this podcast to anyone who you feel that it would be supportive for. Also, it would mean the world to me if you could reach out to me on Instagram. My handle is in the show notes, and let me know how this resonated with you, what you are loving in the podcast, and what you would like to see more of as well, so we can deepen the relationship over there. If you'd like to take these principles deeper and really embody them on a next level in your own life, I invite you to join my email list. The link is in the show notes. I will be emailing you each week. I host live webinars digging even deeper into these concepts and how you can practically apply them into your own life so that you can fully become lit up by life, nourished in all areas, and really embody all of the principles that I share here on this podcast. So again, the link is in the show notes to join. I would absolutely love to have you on there. I provide a ton of value on my list, different practices you can do each week, the webinars that you can tune into, and a lot of other fun goodies as well. And you'll be the first to know about podcast episodes too. So again, hop on over to my email list so that I can fully support you even further, and let's get nourished.